KBI Community. Today we'll be talking with Jim Breakiron, owner of Creative Music Academy, Center for the Performing Arts in Fredericksburg. Jim has spent a lifetime pursuing his passion for music, and sharing that passion is important to him. After moving to this area, he opened a piano store and was teaching lessons while he and his wife were also running Creative Academy Childcare. In 2014, Jim opened Creative Music Academy, bringing in the best teachers and offering lessons to students of all ages. He knows the positive influence music can have on your life and loves being able to share that. You may also recognize Jim from his performances with the Fredericksburg Big Band, the Piedmont Symphony, and the University of Mary Washington Jazz Band. Many of you know Jim Breakiron, but do you know the history behind the man? I love his fascinating story of how one decision and music changed his life. Welcome to the KBI Community. Today we are speaking with Jim Breakiron, owner of Creative Music Academy here in Fredericksburg, Virginia. Jim, thanks for taking time to talk with us today. So I think what we want to do is let's start out with Jim Breakiron in the early years.
The early years.
So you originally are from a small coal mining town in southwest Pennsylvania. So
Right.
Tell us when you were first exposed to music and musical instruments.
Well, I grew up outside of a small town, Uniontown, Pennsylvania, and I was fortunate enough to attend the Salvation Army as our church, and my mother would have us in church at least 3 days a week. And when I was 8 years old, they decided that I was going to play the cornet, which is similar to a trumpet. And I never had any formal training. I would sit beside this other young lady who was a fantastic cornet player, and I would watch her and what she did. And so I picked up some things here and there, over time. And so off and on, I've been playing a musical instrument since I was 8 years old. And let's see, I am now so many years old, and I've enjoyed every moment of it. It's been an incredible blessing for me. But with the Salvation Army, my mother always taught us that we had to give back. And I still keep that in my mind about giving back, helping others. And that's what the Salvation Army was all about. And I remember when I got to a point where I could play, I would play on the street corners at Christmas time around the kettles, and there would be like 3 people, 4 people, and we would play hymns and things like that. And I thought, this is pretty cool that people are giving to help others, and especially in that area, because coal mining, people did not make a lot of money and they needed help. So that's where I got my beginning with music, which has been an integral part of my life by way of playing and by way of retail, selling just about all types of instruments, from band instruments to pianos to organs and so on. And right now I'm in the piano business.
So when you graduated from high school, you decided to go into the Air Force.
I did.
But you were not signing up to go in as a musician.
This is true.
So how did that happen that you became a musician in the Air Force?
Good question. Good question. It's so funny how your path, will change. You think you're going in one direction, and all of a sudden something happens by way of raising your hand to move you into a different direction. Back then, you took an aptitude test before you went into the service. I was 18, had nowhere else to go, so service was my best opportunity to get out of that area, a coal mining. Because all of my father, my grandfather, such and such, they were all coal miners, and it was not a pleasant life. So I was very lucky. So I took this aptitude test, and it showed that I was to be a technician for missiles. And I'm like, okay, I don't know how well that's going to go. Probably was less dangerous than playing the trombone. But so I went to Lackland Air Force Base, and when I was there, they had asked, does anyone play a musical instrument? When we were in a group, and I raised my hand. And they said, how would you like to be in the Drum and Bugle Corps here at Lackland Air Force Base while you're in basic training? And I said, I'll do that. So I did that. And I thought I was going to get out of a lot of the stuff that you normally do in basic training. That was wrong. We had to do everything else plus that. And I tried out on euphonium, or baritone horn. And I said, but all I know how to read is treble clef, because I was a treble player. So lo and behold, don't know how, but I was accepted. So I get when the basic training was up, and I forget how many weeks it was, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, whatever. They shipped me off to McGuire Air Force Base in New Jersey. And so I get there, and my papers, it was designated that I was a euphonium player, that I was going to fill a slot as a euphonium player. So when I get there, they go, well, we don't need a euphonium player. We already have one. There's only one supposed to be designated for a small, I can't remember how many was in it, maybe 28 to 30 people in that band. So they said, okay, we don't need two. And we already have this gentleman, I forgot his name. And they said, but what we do need is, and he went like this. I'll never forget this. And he walks back in this band room where they kept the instruments, similar to where you keep your instruments at KBI, the storage area. And he comes back with a trombone. And he hands me a trombone. And he says, learn this. And I went, wow. I never had a trombone in my, at all. So anyway, I got this, the gentleman had been in for a while with the in the band, and he was a trombone player, bass trombone, as a matter of fact. Sort of took me under his wing, and he showed me a couple little things, with it, what this does and this does and all that. And I went, okay. And he was studying with a gentleman in Philadelphia, which was about an hour's bus ride from McGuire Air Force Base to Philadelphia, studying with a gentleman, his name was Dr. Donald S. Reinhardt, and he developed the pivot system. He was an incredible teacher. People used to come from LA, all over the place, to take lessons with him for embouchures and things like that. So I was so fortunate to have my first lesson with an incredible teacher, and so I really worked at it. I mean, nothing came easy to me. I worked hard, hours and hours and hours a day, and so I had 4 years of that, in the band there. So I got to get to a point where I was doing pretty well. There was always 1,000 guys behind you that played better, but that's okay. I was doing the job, and so that's basically how I got started playing the trombone, and then it went from there. Now I'll be 79 next month, so this is going to be a long interview.
So after then your 4 years in the Air Force,
Yeah.
then you get out of the Air Force.
Correct.
And you go to down DC to work at a music store?
Yeah. At that time in 1964, the hub of all of the music, retail was in Washington, D.C. It was like where everyone went. It wasn't like we have now suburbs and you have everything that you possibly need, like in Fredericksburg. You had, it was Jordan's, where I worked, and they sold pianos and they sold band instruments, guitars, whatever. Diagonally across the street, just a stone's throw if that, was Campbell's music. They had a different line of pianos and organs and things like that, and they also sold Haynes flutes, they sold, Bach, they sold all the band instruments, things like that. They even had one of their floors, they sold stereo, high-end stereos. Halfway up the block was another company, was called Kitts Music. Now at the time, people didn't know this, but Jordan's and Kitts were owned by the same corporation, but the public didn't know, but they had different lines. Okay, so I got into the retail end of the music business. I hadn't been playing since I got out, wasn't too long. So I learned that part of the business, and after I had been there for maybe 6 months or so, a gentleman named Kenny Graisley, who's since passed away, he was the lead trumpet player with the Airmen of Note. And Kenny called me out of the blue one day. He had gotten out of the service. He was, after he got out of the Airmen of Note, he was stationed with me at McGuire Air Force Base and played in the same dance band and all of that. And Kenny said, hey, I'm on the road right now with Warren Covington. He said, have you been playing? And I said, no. And he said, well, get your chops together. We got some gigs. So that's how I started to play then. During that time, after I started playing again, I was very fortunate that I used to play at the National Theater downtown, and the typical, dance bands and things, dances around DC and then other venues. And so that's how I got started there. And I played for a while.
And during that playing time, though, you were playing in the Blue Room at the Shoreham Hotel in DC, which had to have been phenomenal.
It was incredible. It's the way show business, I was so lucky. It was like the way show business really was, like you would be playing, for example, Ella Fitzgerald, for a week. And she would come on stage and the band would start playing before the curtains opened, and it would be just, the band would just building and building, and you would see the curtains open, and you would hear the announcer, and now, ladies and gentlemen, Ella Fitzgerald, and she would walk out, and it was like magic. It was magic. And the room probably held, maybe 400 people. And for example, when she walked out with just about anybody, it was magic. No one talked. No one whispered. No one did anything. They just sat there in awe. As a matter of fact, I think the first 8 bars I was supposed to be playing, I wasn't. I was just in awe of this woman. She was incredible. She was everybody's, everyone's grandmother, just soft-spoken class, just class. And I was lucky enough there to play for, oh my gosh, Sinatra, Tony Bennett, Peggy Lee, and just so many. And it wasn't that I was so, great, playing the trombone. I did the job, because if you didn't do the job, they didn't hire you back. I got along with people. If you didn't get along with people, if you were a superstar, they didn't want you because you caused too much trouble. So it was a lesson in life. That you get along with people, and so, and you do the job, and you do it well, and you really want to be there, then it works for both parties, So I was so blessed, that I did that. And I can't even think of all the people I got to play with, Henry Mancini,
Sammy Davis Jr.
Sammy Davis Jr. was one of my favorites, Lou Rawls, yeah, just lucky. I was a very fortunate, lucky guy, and I did that. Blue Room was my mainstay, and I even played with Barnum and Bailey Ring Circus, or whatever it was called. Yeah, I did that. Everybody, that was when it was like live music, and it was there for 28 days, I think, and you played 2 shows a day, and everything you played was fast and loud. So when you finished with that, you had chops of steel, after that many days. So I did that, played off and on. And I also worked during that time. I was out every night just about playing, and I worked retail. So I did that also, and had to. You had a family, and as a kid, they wanted to eat. What's up with that?
So at some point you left the Blue Room, and then you went in a different direction with your career.
That is true. You are so wise. So what I did is at that time I was working with Campbell's Music and playing in the evenings and things like that. And 1973, quit playing. And we, myself and another gentleman, we went to the Chicago area. It was a suburb of Chicago, Deerbrook, Northbrook, Waukegan. We opened up a music store. We started with one. And we sold everything, pianos, organs, band instruments, guitars, whatever. During a recession, 73, we did well. It was in a mall. That's when malls were really big, And then we opened up another store in Deerbrook, Illinois. It was south of where we had our first one. Then we had another store in Woodfield Mall, which at the time I think was one of the largest malls in the world. So anyway, we ended up with 5 stores. I was working, Risha, like 12, 13 hours a day, 7 days a week. I'm like, what, is this all about? One day, I woke up and said, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. Wasn't thinking about leaving. Wasn't thinking about anything at that time. I just said, I can't do it. So anyway, told my partner, he says, okay, work it out. And so they sold my shares, to him. And I said, well, wait a minute. I always liked Virginia. So I moved back to Virginia. And in fact, my family was still out there. And I just went back and bought a house up there in Woodbridge, and went to work for someone in the music business, and it was easy. all I did was work for them, just for a short time, and enjoyed it, working for them. And then I went to work for Kids Music, and Bill McCormick, who was the CEO, and they were the largest dealer of pianos and organs, I think, in the world, retail-wise. And I remember talking with Bill. That's when I was going through my divorce, my only divorce. Okay, I was going to say my first divorce, but it's my divorce. So anyway, I remember Bill says, "Hey, we got an opening at the mall in Fredericksburg." And I said, yeah, I'd be interested. I'll take it over. He says, I remember I was walking down the mall. He says, do you think you're ready for this? I said, yeah. I said, it's great. Great to do it. We took over that mall. The mall was just doing so-so. Had 2 great salespeople. Had a team. really worked it as a team. We ended up being, after I think a year and a half, no, it was attributed to me, it was attributed to the team. We worked as a team. We ended up being store of the year. We increased the volume threefold. We were the most profitable store in the whole chain. Most profitable, not the most volume, most profitable. And I won't go into why I left there. They were a great company. I think it's because I was sort of a maverick. No, I can't go into it. I was kind of a maverick. They let me run it the way I wanted to run it, to do it. And when they start taking away little by little of bringing me back into corporate, I didn't like that. This wasn't me. I knew it wouldn't work. So then I decided, okay, open up my own place. So I opened up a place right across from Costco. There's that strip center, Goodwood, and all of that. And we opened up there, stayed there for a few years. And then when my wife and I built this building, were you supposed to ask me questions, or am I doing all right?
I was going to say, that's how, with Kit's Music was how you landed in Fredericksburg area.
Yeah.
That's how you got to here.
Yeah.
And then you had, I didn't know about the other store that you opened after that.
I was trying to fill in the whole 79 years.
Yes. So then you opened this,
right,
which is where you are now.
Exactly.
And you built lesson studios.
Yes.
And still sell pianos.
Yes. I figured why pay rent to someone else? So
right.
We took, my wife and I built a building, and our main business is the daycare business. Okay. But this is my love, and they say, well, why do you do this? You don't do this. And I said, no, because I do it for me. I love it, And so we had a lot of children that take lessons, and I sell some pianos, and I dabble, and I'm still in the game. That's the key.
So then who got you back? Because you said you didn't play then.
Oh
Once
my
you
gosh,
started your stores in Chicago, and you did that for about 7 years and got back here, and then you hadn't been playing any. So who in the community here got you back into?
I was urged by him, a guy named Earl Sam, Gary Carper, that knew, as a matter of fact, I knew Paul from way back, 70s, because we were both in the Air Force, So they said, get that thing out of the closet. I don't know, man. It must have been 25, 30 years. I hadn't touched a horn, And many things happened in between those times. Oh, yeah. But so I started. It took me forever. It was like starting over again. Just literally starting over again. Something must have happened. But so anyway, I worked at it, and I'll never forget. I said I would like to. They were playing with the Fredericksburg big band. Used to rehearse down at a church downtown. So they said, "Well, bring your horn, down one day in case someone doesn't show up. You can sit in." I said, I don't know if I'm ready to sit in or not, but I said, got to jump in the fire sometime. So I went down there, and lo and behold, that night I took the horn, someone didn't show up. So Steve Sanford, who's a great trombone player from town here, he says, you're up. So that was my first time that I sat in playing, with a band, after all those people that I'd played for before, you know what I'm saying? And I was a nervous wreck, but it was like all the joy came back, something was missing all those years. And since then, it's all been, I play when I can, I just love it,
So what would you tell, as we wrap up, what would you tell beginning band or orchestras or people interested in music? Do you have any words of wisdom or advice that you would share with them?
That's an interesting question. Very interesting. One of the biggest joys that I have is from encouraging young people, when I'm standing in this store and I see a parent bringing in a child, and some people, they are like introverts, they're quiet, and, the children, and you can just see, how am I going to get to them? How can I encourage them? How can I make them believe my story? And many stories. How can I get that child started? So once you sign them up, and after they've been here, they're taking lessons. You've seen it. We've all seen it. And after about 6 weeks to 7 weeks, then you see them trotting out of here with their little instruments, and they have a little bit different attitude. And you go, I helped. You see, that's what's important to me, more so than anything. We all know what music does for the development of the child, the statistics that are out there. But when you see that, that's what we're never all going to be phenomenal musicians. We're not going to play in the Philharmonic, New York Philharmonic. We're not going to play, But when we do see these people play, and if we've experienced, all of that, we know what it took for them to get there. And it teaches them more than just music. It teaches them lessons in life, in so many ways, as far as dedication, work pays off. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Jim, thank you so much.
Thank you.
This has been a delightful conversation.
Yeah, it's always delightful with you here and with the young lady behind the camera.